Hey folks, Raging Poo here. I've got a new deck for you today. It's a pretty spicy one. I decided to return to my roots a little bit. This was the third deck that I ever made in Commander. The first was Talrand Mono Counters and Disruption. The second one was Omnath Mono Green. And my third deck here was Arcanis. But I decided to update it a little bit because it's been forever since I updated it. It was so long that my paper version had Hinder, Spell Crumple, and Spin into Myth from the days where Tuck was still a thing or whatever. So I've made a few adjustments to it. I made adjustments to my paper one and this one as well. This one operates differently because I play it online. For instance, on paper, I run the Power Artifact combo to go with Grim Monolith or Basalt Monolith. But online, it's rather tedious, so I decided to cut the more tedious combos and just focus on the ones that are easier to do online. Although on paper, you can get away with doing like mini actions at once because you just say what you're doing. But it's a little different here. So we have a Storm combo deck. It's very similar. It operates very similarly to the Simic Partner deck that I did. So I'm going to go over the key pieces and how this deck wants to win. So first of all, we have Palinchron here. And it combos with a few things to create infinite mana. We have Deadeye Navigator, which you can also use Peregrine Drake with Deadeye Navigator. Either one of those generate infinite mana. But Palinchron also goes infinite if you have 6 lands in play and you have Extraplanar Lens on the battlefield, or High Tide has resolved. This will net you 1 mana each time you bounce and replay it, assuming you have 6 lands in play and they're doubled. The next thing we have is Mind Over Matter. This is a 1-card combo with my commander here. You just draw 3 cards, discard one of them to untap Arcanis, and continue to do that until you draw your deck. And you can even untap your lands and artifacts or whatever to cast spells afterwards. So you just win the game immediately if you play Mind Over Matter and Arcanis is in play and not Summoning Sick. We also have Psychosis Crawler here to go with that line. If you draw into it early, you can play it. And if you draw into it late, it's no big deal because you can Time Twister or Time Spiral it back into your deck, or Time Spiral cards back into your deck after you play Psychosis Crawler, so you'll have more to draw to kill them. You can actually repeat that loop indefinitely with Time Twister here and Archaeomancer. So that's Mind Over Matter. You can also just win with Laboratory Maniac that way. The different win conditions in this deck it's kind of varied how you win. It depends on what's going on. But we have Psychosis Crawler, Aetherflux Reservoir, and Lab Man. One of those is what we're going to do here to win the game. So that's Mind Over Matter. And then we have Paradox Engine, which works just insane with Arcanis. It's just tap Arcanis to draw 3 cards, play a spell, untap everything, including Arcanis and all of your mana artifacts. It's just very insane. We also have Walking Atlas here. Interesting little tech in this deck. What you can do is you get it in play and with Paradox Engine, and you cast spells and you can put your lands into play. Because sometimes this deck only runs 29 lands, which is not very many. A lot of fast artifact mana here. So sometimes we've assembled the Palinchron pieces, but we don't have enough lands in play, and that's where Walking Atlas comes in. If you go Paradox Engine, Walking Atlas, you can put a bunch of lands in play and then proceed to do the Palinchron thing. And then yet another way to generate infinite mana is the Icecrown Scepter Dramatic Reversal with 3 or more artifact mana in play. We also have, just for good measure, we have Future Sight, Helm of Awakening, and Sensei's Divining Top, which will also draw through our entire deck. And then the last way to draw our entire deck is Omniscience plus Into the Infinite. My paper version runs Show and Tell, but I do not have it here. That's one of the reasons why I run Trick Bind as well. You cast Show and Tell, and then they put in Acidic Slime or something to kill your Omniscience, and you Trick Bind it. But it's also here just as an interesting counterspell. I've been using this to some success. It's good versus Aetherflux Reservoir type combos. It's reasonable. I mean, if they are impatient and they don't, go off big and they just go off just enough to kill you, you can get them with a Trick Bind. And you can also use it in a bunch of other situations, obviously. I like this one. Yeah, it's an interesting little spell. So, we can cast Omniscience relatively reliably in this deck with the setup we have here. And then with Omniscience, you can obviously win a bunch of different ways. So, I think I've covered just about everything as far as the combos are concerned. We also have these X mana draw card spells that once you've created infinite mana, you can draw your deck that way. Or you can force someone to draw their entire library with Boost on Zenith. But I rarely do that online. It's something I do on paper usually. And the counter spell suite that we have here, it's kind of tight. It's not like an insane amount of counters, but it's just enough to either counter to stop someone from winning or to counter to force through our combo. And we have Pact of Negation, Flusterstorm, Swan Song, Negate, Remand, Unsubstantiate, which is kind of like a counter spell, but the main reason why we have this in the deck is because we can combo it with Mind's Desire to cast an additional Mind's Desire. And with the way this deck works, if you can cast a bunch of spells, you cast a Mind's Desire, and you play more spells, netting more mana, etc. And we have Remand and Unsubstantiate to bounce the Mind's Desire back to hand. We also have Mana Drain, Forbid, and Cryptic Command. So those are the counter spells there. Cryptic Command's a little expensive, but at the same time, it's very versatile, and it comes up where you want a counter spell like that sometimes. It's just nice to have an additional bounce spell as well, and a blue fog sometimes if you're about to die. So that's the counter magic suite there. And there's just a bunch of draw card in the deck outside of Arcanis. Without even using Arcanis, we have Time Twister, Windfall, Time Spiral. You can also do the High Tide, Frantic Surge, Time Spiral, generate a bunch of mana. If you draw all those cards, of course. We got Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora. And Telepathy for information, and Teferi to stop them from stopping us. So I think I've covered just about everything I want to cover here, so let's see some games.